In 1879, in the War of the Pacific, the nation of Bolivia lost the land which connected the main part of Bolivia with its ports on the Pacific Ocean. Those lands became part of Chile. As a result, Bolivia became landlocked. The only way for it to import or export by sea was to use other countries' ports. For nearly 150 years now, there have been negotiations after negotiations, and it has been a point of national politics in Bolivia to try to obtain sovereign access to the Pacific. So, not just using someone else's port, but using a Bolivian port. In 2013, frustrated by the lack of progress, Bolivia filed an application in the International Court of Justice, seeking a declaration that Chile had an obligation to negotiate in good faith with Bolivia regarding access to the Pacific, that Chile had breached that obligation, and that Chile must perform the said obligation in good faith, promptly, formally, within a reasonable time and effectively, to grant Bolivia a fully sovereign access to the Pacific Ocean. This was an odd application. It was framed as an application which sought to compel Chile to negotiate, but in reality this was an application which sought to compel Chile to grant access. Bolivia's principal argument was based on statements made by Chilean officials over many years, repeating their commitment to working with Bolivia to resolve the dispute. It was said by Bolivia that those statements amounted to an enforceable undertaking by Chile to negotiate in a way that resolved the dispute. However, the statements made by Chile were always very carefully worded. They expressed a hope for future negotiations. They expressed a willingness to cooperate, but they never specifically promised to negotiate, nor did they promise to achieve any particular outcome. For the statements of a country to reach the point of being binding obligations, they would need to be clear and unequivocal. The court said, with regard to the circumstances of Chile's declarations and statements, there is no evidence of an intention on the part of Chile to assume an obligation to negotiate. The court therefore concludes that an obligation to negotiate Bolivia's sovereign access to the sea cannot rest on any of Chile's unilateral acts referred to by Bolivia. This case confirms that a country can bind itself by its promissory statements, but they must be very clear and direct statements.